Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ambassador, for joining us. I represent about 7,000 Tibetan Canadians in my riding of Parkdale High Park. I'm also the chair of the Parliamentary Friends of Tibet and have a background in human rights law. So that's the orientation to which I come to this issue. My Tibetan constituents, and I'm glad you acknowledge them, the Tibetan Canadian community is vibrant in this country and strong, and groups like the Canada-Tibet Committee and Sherb Tirchin, I know, have been in contact with you, and I echo your assessment of the community because they've taught me a lot about the injustices that they're perceiving on the ground. I'd also salute you for making the decision to go, notwithstanding the veneer that would have been presented to you and the sort of staged, managed approach that the Chinese would have approached your visit into the TAR. In my meeting with His Holiness the Dalai Lama in 2018, he told me much the same, that notwithstanding what you may be presented with, it's important that the world sees Tibetans in their territory for who they are, and that they know that the world has not forgotten them. So thank you for participating in that, Ambassador Barton. That being said, I am suspicious about what you saw, and I know you went in with your eyes wide open in terms of what you were seeing. So the first thing I want to ask you about is sort of the linguistic point that's been raised by others, including Mr. Bergeron. So you know that there is provisions on the ground and laws on the ground about the education of people. So we know that there's an ethnic autonomy law in China that says schools and other educational organizations recruiting mostly ethnic minority students should, whenever possible, use textbooks in their own languages and use these languages as the media of instruction. That's a quote from the China Regional Ethnic Autonomy Law. Tell us a bit more about what you saw at that school in particular, because I appreciate calligraphy is one thing, but actually having substantive courses being taught in Tibetan is quite the other. So what is the status of linguistic protections from your assessment and your time on the ground?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank the member for the work you do with the community and everything that's happening on that front. I think that on the school, again, it was a large school, primary school. It was actually grades 1 to 4. And what we tried to do is see as many classes as we could beyond the ones that they'd asked us to, if you will. So with a group of 10 of us, we were able to do that. And it was just an observation, but we sort of got the sense that the science and the math was being done in Mandarin. Now, maybe there could be, what some people said is, no, there's a Tibetan stream on that. We didn't see that. We saw the Mandarin stream on that. And then there was as you said, the calligraphy, the opera courses that were the more, as I'd say, artistic elements, that they were done in Tibetan. So clearly Tibetan is taught. People have to be able to speak that language in there, but it felt like us that the sort of the core one was Mandarin.
Yeah, I was taken by what you mentioned about sort of language instruction. You mentioned a woman who's a Canadian taking her family back to immerse them more in Tibetan culture. But I know that there are classes in Parkdale where people are being taught languages, and I'm shudder to think whether that would even be possible in places like Lhasa. You know about the case of Tashi Wangchuk, a very celebrated linguistic activist who was charged and subsequently jailed for daring to promote Tibetan language instruction. Is that the kind of case you were able to raise, specifically people like Tashi Wangchuk and other linguistic activists who have been jailed by the Chinese in the Tibetan Autonomous Region?
Right. As I mentioned, the language element was the fundamental area we wanted to look at, and we were concerned and trying to find out more on that. I'm very much aware of the Tashi Wangchuk situation, who has been raised by ministers with the Chinese government on that. I didn't raise his specific case here because he's in Qinghai, so that they don't have authority over him.